Hello, my dear companion, on this journey through fascinating historical stories. Take a deep breath as I take you into a world of centuries past, where winter is not just a challenge of temperature, but also a test of spirit and power. Have you ever wondered that amidst the biting cold of a Russian winter, a queen faced not only nature's harshness, but also the trials of her royal life? Together, we'll explore the story of Catherine the Great, the powerful empress of Russia, and how she dealt with the bitter cold of the season, not only in nature, but also in the hearts of those around her. Imagine standing in the grand, magnificent room of a palace. The warm light from chandeliers reflects off the opulent surroundings. Yet outside the windows, the cold wind howls through the palace's cracks, and you can feel the chill creeping into every corner of the vast space. That's winter in Russia, a harsh winter so intense that even the thickest stone walls and the grandest fireplaces can't completely banish the cold. And in this very space, Catherine the Great, the queen of an empire, must navigate not just the cold, but the power struggles and conspiracies that come with her rule. Have you ever asked yourself, how can a woman like Catherine, no matter how powerful, not escape the cruelty of winter and face the challenges from within her very own palace? Join me as we explore this story, where Catherine was not just a ruler, but a symbol of resilience, adaptability, and strength. Catherine the Great, or Catherine the Sisek, was one of the greatest monarchs in history who transformed Russia into one of the most powerful empires in the world. Born in Germany and later becoming the Empress of Russia, Catherine was not only a powerful woman, but also a reformer who reshaped Russia's politics, society, and culture. In the 18th century, when she ascended to the throne, Russia was not the empire we know today. It was a vast kingdom, but one lacking unity and stability. Under Catherine's leadership, Russia became one of the world's most formidable empires. She pushed for reforms, advanced education, supported the arts, and enriched the country through military campaigns. However, behind these triumphs was a constant battle she fought every day: the relentless cold of Russian winters, and the uprisings and conspiracies from those closest to her. Though she was the empress of a vast empire, Catherine still had to face the brutal reality of the Russian winter. Winter in Russia was not only cold in terms of temperature, but also full of political and personal challenges. The power struggles, the battles for survival, and the conspiracies within the court all unfolded in the cruel grip of winter. Let us walk through the long hallways of Catherine's palace. As you step inside, you immediately feel the contrast between the opulence of the palace and the cold indifference of winter. Catherine's palace was a magnificent fortress with thick stone walls, vast corridors, and towering windows that looked out over the frozen landscape. These walls, adorned with priceless artworks, golden chandeliers, and intricate tapestries, couldn't keep the cold at bay. When winter came, The cold infiltrated every corner of the palace, making even the grandest spaces feel like a cold fortress against nature. The massive fireplaces that burned continuously throughout the palace were meant to provide some relief, but even they could not completely drive away the chill. The grand halls, despite their size and beauty, still felt the effects of the harsh season. The nobles, courtiers, and servants in the palace had to bundle up in thick coats, sometimes draping themselves in fur shawls to endure the cold. Despite the grandeur, the chill was ever present, reminding everyone that no matter how grand their surroundings, they were all vulnerable to the relentless Russian winter. Winter was not just a season, but a test of endurance. Even in the palace, Catherine had to find ways to manage the discomfort and harshness of the cold. The chill outside, combined with the unrelenting political struggles within, made each day a challenge. But despite it all, Catherine stood firm, ruling her empire with strength and resolve. So even a woman as powerful as Catherine the Great could not escape the cruelty of the Russian winter. But it was during these very winters that she displayed extraordinary resilience, not only in governing her vast empire, but also in enduring the personal and political hardships that came her way. Despite the snow and ice, Catherine was a symbol of perseverance, strength, and leadership. Let's continue this journey together, exploring the further challenges Catherine faced during these harsh winters, not only dealing with the cold, but also the rebellions, the political intrigues, and the critical decisions she had to make. As you stand at the grand entrance of Catherine the Great's palace, you feel an immediate contrast between the grandeur of the surroundings and the cold that invades from every corner. The thick stone walls, which should offer protection, do little to shield you from the harsh winter winds that cut through the air. Even though the palace is a symbol of wealth and power, the biting cold of the Russian winter seeps through every crevice, finding its way into the most opulent chambers. You notice how the grandeur of the architecture, with its towering windows and long corridors, can't hold back the chill that settles in. Despite the flickering warmth from the large fireplaces scattered across the palace, there is no escaping the cold. The flames struggle to keep the room warm, and the air remains sharp with the unmistakable chill of winter. The chill is a constant companion, reminding everyone that even in the most luxurious of places, nature still reigns supreme. As you move through the palace, you can see the cold's effects more clearly. The marble floors, smooth and polished, look stunning under the dim light, but they're bitterly cold beneath your feet. Even the delicate tapestries that adorn the walls seem to hang a little more limply than they should, their once vibrant colors muted by the dampness that clings to the air. The warmth from the hearths does little to break through the thick air, leaving the rooms with an uneasy blend of warmth and chill. The grand halls, which would normally echo with the sounds of music and laughter, feel quieter, as if the cold has muffled everything. The few courtiers present, wrapped in layers of furs, walk quickly from one chamber to another, trying to avoid the sharp sting of the air that follows them like a shadow. You can hear their breath come in visible clouds, a reminder that despite the splendor around them, the cold is always just one step behind. As Catherine walks through the halls, you see the weight of the cold press on her as well. The royal attire she wears, meant to symbolize her power and grace, is no match for the freezing temperatures that invade her palace. Even she must adjust, shifting her cloak more tightly around her shoulders, her face momentarily contorted with the discomfort of the winter. Yet with every step she takes, her regal composure remains, and she continues with her duties, holding court, making decisions, and leading her empire through the challenges of the day. The cold, it seems, is an adversary she must fight against every hour, not just as a ruler, but as a woman who, like everyone else, is vulnerable to the elements. In the drawing rooms, the fire burns brightly in the grand fireplaces, its warmth a temporary reprieve from the cold. But it never quite reaches the farthest corners of the room. The gilded furniture, once carefully placed, seems slightly less inviting as you notice how the cold seeps into the corners of the room, making it seem distant and remote. Even the guests, their laughter and conversation muffled by the chill, keep a little closer to the fires, their eyes betraying the discomfort they feel beneath their carefully composed facades. The grandeur of the palace is undeniable, but you can't help but notice that beneath the surface it is a place of survival, a place where every moment is marked by the struggle to endure the season's unrelenting grip. Yet even in the face of such harsh conditions, Catherine, the queen of this vast empire, carries on. The winter might be harsh, but it is not something that can break her. It is merely another challenge, another battle to fight, and like all battles, she faces it with the same determination and resilience that defines her reign. The warmth of the fires, the luxury of the palace, the wealth of the empire, none of it can shield her from the cold, but neither can it diminish the strength she draws from within. In this palace, surrounded by the biting winter air, Catherine stands firm, as unyielding as the walls of her grand estate. And yet, you sense that it's not just the cold outside that makes this winter so difficult. The political tension that bubbles just beneath the surface is as cold as the frost that coats the palace's windows. The courtiers, the nobles, the ministers, everyone feels the weight of power shifting. The air is thick with unease, and the bitter cold seems to mirror the challenges Catherine faces from within her court, from those who would see her reign undone. But she carries on standing strong against both the physical cold and the political battles that threaten her empire. As you continue to walk through the vast corridors of the palace, you can't help but marvel at the contrast. On one hand, you are surrounded by unimaginable wealth and power, but on the other, you are reminded that even the most powerful must face the unyielding forces of nature. The warmth of the palace might offer a temporary escape, but the cold outside is never far away, just as the challenges of leadership are never truly gone. And so Catherine, like the palace itself, endures. The cold may chill her bones, but it does not break her spirit. Each day, as the winds howl outside, she continues her work, leading Russia with strength, grace, and a determination that even the harshest winter cannot diminish. You imagine Catherine the Empress of this vast empire, waking up early each morning. She steps out of bed, her breath visible in the cold air despite the warm blankets she's wrapped in. Even as the palace staff rushes to stoke the fires in her chambers, it's clear that the cold is a battle fought every day. As the Empress, Catherine had the privilege of warmth in her chambers, but the cold never truly left. Throughout the day, you watch as Catherine and her court bundle up in thick, heavy coats and layers of furs. Even the nobility, used to the finest silks and brocades, find themselves wrapped in layers of warmth, their delicate outfits hidden beneath heavy, insulating clothing. The noble women wear cloaks of fur, and the men drape themselves in thick woolen garments, all doing their best to fight off the cold that lingers despite the palace's size and beauty. The luxury of the palace may be unmatched, but it cannot stop the Russian winter from creeping in. As the day unfolds, you follow Catherine through the palace halls. Her regal figure wrapped in layers of fur and wool, yet her every movement still bears the telltale signs of the chill that clings to her. Despite the opulence surrounding her, the luxury of her attire can't shield her from the bitter cold that remains relentless. The fire crackles in the great hearths, but even the strongest flames struggle against the cold that seeps through the stone walls and high drafty windows. Catherine's breath forms a visible mist with every word she speaks, and you can see the brief shiver in her shoulders, no matter how hard she tries to conceal it. As you move with her through the grand drawing rooms, the contrast becomes more apparent. The intricate tapestries hanging on the walls, their vibrant hues meant to convey warmth and prosperity, are no match for the biting winter winds that somehow find their way in. The chandeliers, gleaming with gold and crystal, reflect the dim light from the fire, but their beauty feels distant as the chill remains at the edges of the rooms. Catherine, even amidst the lavish surroundings, must endure this uncomfortable reality, one that she cannot escape no matter how many layers she wears or how many fires are lit. In the palace's grand dining hall, where elaborate feasts are laid out on gleaming silver platters, the courtiers gather to dine. The tables are laden with the finest dishes, delicacies from across the empire, all meant to warm the body and spirit. Yet as the guests laugh and converse, their breath lingers in the air, a soft fog that reminds them of the cold they cannot escape. They try to mask their discomfort with polite smiles, but the chill of the room is ever present, seeping into their bones despite the warmth of the food and drink. Even the grandest of feasts cannot banish the cold entirely. The servants, too, are bundled in layers of wool and fur, their movements quick and purposeful, as they rush from one task to another, mindful of the cold floors beneath their feet. The warmth of the hearths, though welcome, is never enough to thaw the entire palace. They work swiftly, aware that they, like everyone else, must contend with the cold, whether serving dinner to nobles or tending to Catherine's needs. As evening falls, you see the change in atmosphere. The daylight hours fade quickly, leaving the palace bathed in the eerie glow of candlelight. The shadows grow long as the warmth of the sun fades, and the cold of the Russian winter grips tighter. The palace, once bustling with the day's activity, becomes quieter, more somber. The fire in Catherine's chamber burns low, and the air in her room grows colder with each passing minute. She adjusts her cloak, the fur collar snug against her neck, but there's no denying the discomfort that lingers in the air. You notice Catherine's gaze out the window as she looks over her vast domain, the snow-covered land stretching beyond the palace grounds. The winter has come, and it is unyielding, as much a part of Russia as its people and its politics. Yet there is something undeniably resilient about Catherine as she stands there, her face illuminated by the flickering light of the fire. She is the empress of an empire that stretches across continents, and though the winter may be cold and harsh, it is only one more challenge she faces in her endless task of governing and guiding her people. And as the night deepens, you realize that the cold may have claimed the land, but it has not claimed Catherine's spirit. Even in the face of relentless winter, she stands strong, her presence a force to be reckoned with. The frost may touch the edges of her palace, but it cannot touch her will. As you walk deeper into the palace, you can't help but notice the stark contrast between the opulence of the surroundings and the reality of surviving the elements. Gold leaf chandeliers hang from the ceilings, their sparkling crystals catching the light of the few torches that line the walls. Grand tapestries, woven with the finest materials, hang from the walls, depicting scenes of beauty and wealth. Yet despite the beauty that surrounds you, the cold remains a persistent force against the luxury. The contrast is striking. In the drawing rooms and banquet halls, the heat from the fireplaces does little more than warm the air closest to the flames, leaving the far corners of the rooms cold and uncomfortable. You notice guests at the banquets trying to remain polite as they eat, but their breath forms visible clouds in the air. The warmth of the fire does little to penetrate the cold stone walls of the grand palace. And even the most luxurious of gowns and jewels cannot hide the shiver in their spines. As the guests converse, their voices echo softly through the vast, gilded halls. But the sounds seem muffled by the overwhelming presence of the cold. You watch as the noble women, elegantly draped in rich velvet and satin, clutch their shawls tighter around their shoulders, their delicate fingers brushing against the warmth of their glasses or teacups, trying to draw some comfort from the heat. The men, too, adjust their collars and tug at their heavy coats, their fine waistcoats doing little to protect them, from the biting air that sneaks into every corner. Despite the grandeur of the banquet, the mood is not as festive as it should be. The laughter and chatter feel strained, as though the cold has seeped into the very atmosphere, dampening the usual merriment. The occasional crackling of the fire in the hearth provides brief moments of warmth, but those fleeting flashes of heat only seem to emphasize the cold that follows in its wake. The discomfort is undeniable, and you can see the guests exchange glances, each one doing their best to mask their unease. But it is clear that the cold is a shared experience, something none of them can escape. Catherine, ever the composed and regal hostess, moves effortlessly through the room. Her steps are deliberate, confident, but even she cannot hide the subtle shifts in her posture as she nears the fire, her cloak drawn tightly around her. Her smile remains charming and poised, but you can see the sharpness in her eyes, the sharpness that comes from living in constant battle with the elements. As the Empress of Russia, she has faced countless political struggles, but here, in her own palace, she is a subject of nature's unyielding grip, just like everyone else. The grand banquet hall, adorned with its luxurious tapestries and gilded furniture, seems more like a fortress than a place of warmth. The tall windows, draped in velvet, offer a view of the snow-covered landscape beyond the trees, swaying gently in the cold breeze. The sight of the frozen world outside serves as a reminder of the power of the Russian winter, which refuses to be ignored even in the heart of the empire's greatest palace. As you continue through the palace, you notice the same contrast everywhere you look. In the lavish bedrooms, the finest silks and linens drape the furniture, yet the chill of the room is still palpable. The beds piled high with blankets and feather beds offer little respite from the cold that seeps through the stone walls. The fire in the hearth struggles to warm the air, and you see the servants hurrying to stoke the flames, doing their best to ward off the icy air. The warmth of the bed can't chase away the biting cold that clings to the room, just as the wealth of the empire can't banish the harsh realities of the Russian winter. You can't help but marvel at the unyielding nature of it all. The palace, so full of wealth and beauty, stands in stark contrast to the elements it cannot control. The finest silks, the brightest jewels, the most exquisite tapestries, none of it can stop the cold from creeping into every crevice. It's as if in that moment, nature asserts its dominance over everything. Despite all the power, all the grandeur, the cold remains untouchable, a reminder of the fragility of human control over the natural world. Catherine's resilience is evident in her ability to continue as though the cold is an afterthought, but you can see it in the way she adjusts her cloak or positions herself closer to the fire. It's not weakness, but the acceptance of a reality that even a monarch cannot escape. She continues to rule, continues to engage with her court, yet the cold remains a constant presence, reminding everyone that even the most powerful figures are subject to nature's unrelenting force. The palace is an empire in itself, a place of wealth and splendor, yet it is not impervious to the harshness of the world around it. And as Catherine moves through her palace, a symbol of strength and resilience, she knows that despite the cold, despite the winter's grip, she must continue. For in the end, the cold will not stop her. She is the Empress of Russia, and no matter the chill, she will endure. You feel the cold throughout every moment of the day, even in the grandest of settings, where Catherine holds court, the chill is undeniable. You might stand before the towering windows, looking out over the vast Russian landscape, and marvel at the beauty of the snow-covered world. But as you turn to enter the palace, the cold is there, creeping through the stone walls and making the vast palace feel more like a fortress than a home. You realize that despite the grandeur and beauty, Catherine's palace is not immune to the relentless power of nature. The fire might warm the hearts of those gathered, but the cold remains a constant reminder of the reality of life in Russia. Despite the palace's opulence, the harsh Russian winter shows no mercy to anyone, not even the most powerful ruler in the world. As you walk deeper into the palace, the cold follows you, an ever-present companion that lingers in the air regardless of the lavish surroundings. The towering stone walls, designed to impress with their grandeur, do little to shield you from the frost creeping through the cracks. The heat from the grand fireplaces flickers, casting warm light that dances across the room. But it does little to dispel the chill that penetrates the thick air. You feel it in the tips of your fingers, in the gentle sting of your cheeks, and in the soft shiver that runs down your spine, no matter how thick the fur cloak you wear. Catherine, ever the composed ruler, maintains her poise as she presides over her court. She stands tall, as dignified as ever, but even she cannot escape the discomfort that the cold brings. Her breath forms delicate clouds in the air, visible only for a fleeting moment before being whisked away by the stillness of the room. As you observe her, you realize that her ability to endure is not only in her power to govern, but also in her ability to withstand the relentless physical toll that the Russian winter demands from everyone, even the most powerful empress in the world. Her courtiers, too, do their best to mask the discomfort. The noblemen, dressed in their finest woolen coats and silk waistcoats, shuffle closer to the fire, their faces betraying the chill they cannot escape. The noble women, their ornate dresses often heavy with gold thread and delicate lace, wrap themselves in cloaks of fur, their hands trembling slightly as they sip from their cups. The warmth from the hearths provides temporary relief, but it never quite reaches the corners of the rooms where the cold lingers stubbornly. You begin to realize that Catherine's palace, magnificent as it is no sanctuary from nature's fury. The ornate furnishings, the golden chandeliers, and the magnificent tapestries that adorn the walls cannot keep the harsh winter at bay. The luxurious setting, meant to symbolize her power and wealth, seems oddly futile in the face of the relentless winter winds. It's as though the palace itself, no matter how grand, is a mere shell, vulnerable to the same forces that affect the common folk. Despite the glittering beauty around you, the stone walls cannot protect you from the chill outside. As Catherine moves through her palace speaking with her ministers and advisors, she does so with a quiet determination. Her face remains composed, her voice steady as she speaks of matters of state, but in the briefest moments you catch a flicker of weariness in her eyes. The cold, you realize, is more than just a physical challenge for Catherine. It is a reminder that no matter how much power she wields, she too must bow to the forces of nature. Even she cannot control the winter. The further you walk into the palace, the more the cold seems to take hold of the space. In the private chambers, where Catherine retires for moments of respite, the cold is still there, despite the thick rugs and velvet curtains that line the walls. The warmth of the fire might make the room comfortable for a time, but as night falls and the temperature drops, the cold creeps in again, turning the palace into a silent fortress against the outside world. Catherine must endure this cold night after night, just as her people do. But it is not only the cold that tests Catherine's strength. It is the knowledge that even in the heart of her empire, she is not exempt from the realities of the world. The cold forces her to confront her own vulnerability, a vulnerability she must keep hidden from her court, from her people, and from the world. It is this harsh, unrelenting winter that mirrors the challenges she faces as a ruler. A constant reminder that no matter how high you rise, nature will always find a way to challenge you. As you continue your walk through the palace, you come to realize that the cold of the Russian winter, much like the challenges of Catherine's reign, cannot be avoided or controlled. It is something that must be endured, something that tests the strength of all who face it, regardless of their station. And in this cold, Catherine stands as a symbol of resilience, not only as a monarch, but as a person who must, like everyone else, weather the storms of nature and of power. The cold may be relentless, but Catherine's resolve remains unbroken. As you step into the grand banquet hall, you're immediately struck by the contrast. Despite the cold that still clings to the palace like an unwelcome guest inside the room, is alive with warmth and light. Catherine, the Empress of Russia, has transformed the harshness of winter into an extravagant celebration of opulence. The long dining tables stretch before you, covered with fine cloths and laden with sumptuous food. Platters of roasted meats, delicate pastries, and freshly baked breads are artfully arranged in a feast that seems endless. The scent of rich, hearty dishes fills the air, mingling with the fragrant aromas of spiced wines and steaming broths. You watch as the wine warmed by the fire is poured into crystal goblets that sparkle in the candlelight. The warmth of the drink, combined with the hearty fare, offers a welcome escape from the cold that remains just outside the palace walls. The guests, adorned in their finest attire, settle into their seats, ready to indulge in the luxury of the evening. And yet, beneath the splendor, you can still feel the quiet presence of the winter outside, a reminder of how fleeting this warmth is in the grand scheme of things. As you take in the scene, the flickering candlelight casts dancing shadows across the walls, their warm glow fighting against the cool air that lingers just beyond the doors. The laughter and chatter of the guests fill the room, creating an atmosphere of merriment and excitement. The silver platters are passed from hand to hand, the sounds of clinking utensils and the cheerful hum of conversation blending together in a soft symphony. Yet, as much as the warmth of the palace embraces you, there's a quiet hum beneath it all, a reminder of the harsh Russian winter just beyond the palace's walls. The guests, dressed in layers of fine silk velvet and brocade, move gracefully about the room. The noble women wear dresses adorned with lace, pearls, and precious gemstones, their beauty radiating in the soft, flickering light. The men, equally dressed in their finest garb, their coats embroidered with gold and silver thread, carry themselves with the dignity of those who know their place in the court. But as they settle into their seats, you notice the subtle adjustments they make, slight tugs at the edges of their cloaks, or the quick glances at the hearths, seeking a bit more warmth from the fires that blaze in the grand fireplaces. And then there's Catherine, moving among them with the grace and elegance of a queen who commands both respect and admiration. Her gown, resplendent in its richness, glitters under the candlelight, yet it does nothing to keep her fully shielded from the winter that still clings to the edges of the palace. But her presence, as she walks among her guests, offers something more than warmth, something much more powerful. She exudes a strength, a quiet authority that makes the cold seem insignificant in comparison to her commanding presence. You watch as she moves from one group to the next, exchanging words with her courtiers and advisors, her voice soft but firm, guiding the conversation with subtlety and grace. Her eyes, sharp and thoughtful, never miss a detail. Catherine's role as the Empress is not just to oversee the grand feast, but to unite her people, to share in the warmth of the moment with them, even as the winter rages outside. She brings a sense of comfort and security to the room, and through her, you begin to understand the true power of her reign, not just in wealth, but in the way she can turn an otherwise harsh winter night into something joyful, into something unforgettable. As the night wears on, the cold seems to retreat further and further, pushed back by the laughter, the warmth, and the presence of those gathered together. The wine flows freely, its rich warmth spreading through the guests, loosening tongues, and filling the air with even more spirited conversation. The food, exquisite, indulgent, becomes a symbol of the abundance Catherine has brought to her court, a stark contrast to the barren winter landscape that stretches outside the palace gates. Yet no matter how much the festivities grow, you can't help but sense the delicate balance between this warmth and the cold beyond. The cold outside may be temporary, but inside Catherine's court, it is always just a reminder of how precious these moments of warmth truly are. You realize that the luxury, the opulence, the beauty of the evening, they are all part of Catherine's world, but so is the constant awareness that nothing, not even an empress, can escape the enduring power of the seasons. And so the evening unfolds in a delicate dance between warmth and cold, between lavish feasts and the looming presence of winter. Catherine stands at the center of it all, her regal stature never wavering, her laughter joining that of her guests, her smile as radiant as the firelight that flickers in the hearth. In this moment, she has transformed the harshness of winter into a celebration, a gathering of people who, despite the cold outside, find warmth in each other's company and in the leadership of a woman who knows how to make the most of the fleeting joys that life can offer. The grand dining hall is illuminated by dozens of flickering candles, their soft glow casting long shadows against the richly adorned walls. The chandeliers overhead glimmer with golden light, adding to the room's aura of elegance. Despite the chill that still lingers in the air, the warmth from the fires burning in the grand hearths begins to fill the space, wrapping the guests in a comforting embrace. But the cold is never far away, and you notice how everyone in the room, no matter how elegantly dressed, fights against the lingering chill. The noble women draped in gowns of luxurious silks and velvets cling to their furs, wrapping them tightly around their shoulders. The men, too, adjust their coats, seeking out the warmth of the fire as they settle into their places at the table. The atmosphere is a mix of beauty and discomfort as each guest tries to find solace not only in the warmth of the feast, but also in the company of those around them. The laughter and conversation swirl through the air, yet there's an unspoken understanding that they are all bound by the same reality. The cold may be outside, but here, among friends and family, warmth can be found in shared moments. As you look around the grand dining hall, you can see the delicate balance between opulence and the elements. The long polished oak tables are set with fine china and crystal glasses that catch the light of the candles, glimmering like tiny stars in the warmth of the room. Yet despite the luxury of the setting, the guests seem subtly preoccupied with the cold, even though it is nearly imperceptible to the casual observer. A slight tremble of the fingers as they reach for their goblets, a quick glance toward the flickering flames in the hearth, small gestures that remind everyone of the harsh season still lingering just outside the palace walls. The ladies, their gowns flowing and glimmering in the candlelight, move with grace, but beneath the elegance, their furs are clutched tighter as they settle into their seats. You notice the way they draw their shawls closer around their necks, seeking warmth from the thick, plush layers of the fur that drape over their shoulders. The intricate embroidery on their gowns is stunning, but it's the fur lining their hoods and cloaks that truly offers them comfort in this cold winter evening. Despite the grandeur of their attire, the chill of winter is something none of them can escape, not even in the midst of such a lavish banquet. The gentlemen, too, are not immune to the discomfort. Their tailored coats and velvet waistcoats, often richly embroidered with gold thread, seem barely sufficient against the biting chill that sneaks through the edges of the room. The servants, quick and efficient, move through the room, ensuring that each guest's cup is filled and their plate replenished. But you notice the way their breath forms little clouds in the cold air. They, too, seem to be caught in the delicate dance of warmth and discomfort, their faces a mix of courtesy and quiet relief as they retreat to the warmth of the kitchen after their duties. The warmth from the hearths gradually spreads through the hall, offering solace to those who've gathered here for this grand feast. Yet no matter how much the fire flickers and dances in its golden glow, you can't help but sense how fleeting it all feels. The cold is always lurking just beyond the walls, a reminder of the season's power over even the most lavish of settings. The warmth from the fire, the laughter, the food, all of these comforts are temporary, meant to offer reprieve, but not to eliminate the inevitable grip of winter. As Catherine moves through the hall, greeting guests with her usual grace, you watch her for a moment. She, too, has the same warmth from the hearths around her, but she holds herself with a regal composure, unaffected by the slight discomfort in the air. Her smile is warm, inviting, yet her eyes reveal a quiet awareness that this evening, this warmth is but a brief escape from the icy reality outside. Catherine, though Empress of all Russia, is not immune to the harshness of winter. Her calm demeanor is both a reflection of her strength and a reminder that even the greatest of rulers must face the same struggles as their people, be it the political unrest of the empire or the relentless cold of the Russian winter. Despite the fleeting nature of the warmth, the feast continues. The guests are content, their spirits lifted by the shared company and the lavish offerings of food and drink. The cold may be a constant presence, but here within the walls of Catherine's palace, there is a shared understanding, a bond between the guests that transcends the discomforts of the season. For in this moment, it is not the cold that defines them, but the warmth of togetherness, the comfort of the feast, and the leadership of the woman who brings them all together. The laughter, conversation, and clinking of glasses continue throughout the night, and the air, though still slightly cool, begins to feel warmer with each passing hour. As the evening deepens, the guests find themselves content, not just with the food and drink, but with the fleeting escape from the cold united under the roof of Catherine's palace. The night stretches on filled with the joy of the season, the warmth of the fire, and the comfort of each other's company, even as the world outside remains locked in the grasp of winter. In this grand feast, the cold of the Russian winter is momentarily forgotten, replaced by the warmth of shared moments and the resilient spirit of the Empress who makes it all possible. Catherine, with her calm grace and unyielding strength, stands as a beacon of warmth and leadership in the coldest of seasons. As you look toward the head of the table, you spot Catherine, the Empress herself, moving gracefully among her guests. Even though the palace is filled with warmth, there is something about her presence that makes the room feel even more inviting. She moves with poise and authority, her gaze steady and calm as she greets each guest with a smile. Though her attire is magnificent, rich velvet and fur adorned with jewels that catch the light of the candles, there is something more to her than just her regal appearance. It's the warmth she brings not only through her grand feasts, but through her leadership. You can see how Catherine, despite the challenges of the season, ensures that each guest feels valued. She listens intently to the conversations offering encouragement or a well-placed word of advice, always with grace. Her movements are deliberate, and her voice carries the weight of the Empress's authority, but there's a kindness in her eyes. In this moment, as the guests eat, drink, and relax, Catherine is not just a ruler. She is the heart of the gathering, bringing everyone together in the spirit of warmth and hospitality. Despite the cold that may surround them, it is her leadership that transforms the evening into something far greater, a shared experience of joy, unity, and comfort. As Catherine moves from guest to guest, you notice the effortless way she carries herself, the way her presence commands attention without ever seeming imposing. She has the uncanny ability to make each person feel as though they are the most important individual in the room. Her smile is warm, her gestures elegant, but it's the genuine interest in her eyes that draws people to her. She listens carefully as one of the courtiers shares a story, nodding thoughtfully, her hand gently resting on the edge of the table as she gives them her full attention. Her laugh is soft, sincere, and you can see how it makes everyone feel more at ease, as if they've been transported away from the cold and into the heart of the moment. You watch her glide from one conversation to the next, her movements graceful, her presence undeniable. Her every step seems calculated, but not in a way that feels forced. There's a fluidity to her actions, a quiet confidence that puts everyone around her at ease. Even in the midst of the grandest of banquets, she remains unpretentious, approachable, but still radiating the undeniable power of a monarch. She doesn't need to raise her voice or demand attention. She simply commands it by the way she interacts, by the way her very presence brings a sense of unity and purpose to the room. Catherine is not just a queen presiding over a meal. She is the pulse of the evening. As she moves through the room, her gaze shifts from one guest to the next, offering a kind word, a gentle nod, a small laugh. But her leadership is also evident in her careful orchestration of the evening. She ensures that every guest is content, that each is included, and that no one feels left out. In a way, she does more than host a feast. She creates a community, an atmosphere where the barriers of rank and title seem to fade away, where everyone, from the highest noble to the lowest servant, shares in the warmth of the moment. As you observe Catherine, you realize that her role as a leader extends far beyond the political realm. Yes, she rules a vast empire, and yes, her decisions affect millions. But in this room, on this night, she is the embodiment of hospitality and kindness. Her leadership is felt not just in the policies she enacts or the military victories she commands, but in the way she makes those around her feel seen, heard, and valued. It's in the way she is present, truly present in every interaction, in every conversation, making sure that each person at the table is not just a guest, but a vital part of the evening's joy. As the evening wears on, the fire in the hearth continues to crackle its warmth, spreading through the room. But it's Catherine's presence that truly keeps the chill at bay. The laughter continues to flow, the food keeps coming, and the atmosphere remains one of camaraderie and connection. You realize that despite the cold winter outside, the warmth within these walls is not just from the fires or the lavish food. It's from the shared connection, the unity, and the feeling of belonging that Catherine as a leader and hostess has fostered. In this moment, Catherine is not just a ruler presiding over a feast. She is a symbol of resilience and strength. She has transformed a cold, harsh winter evening into a celebration of warmth, unity, and shared humanity. And as you watch her continue to move through the room, you understand that this is the true essence of leadership, creating spaces where people can come together, share in moments of joy, and feel valued no matter how cold the world outside may be. As the evening progresses, you find yourself drawn into the atmosphere of camaraderie that fills the room. The fire crackles loudly in the hearth, the warmth spreading throughout the hall. But it's the laughter and conversation that truly heat the space. Guests lean in close, engaging in animated discussions about the latest happenings in the empire, sharing stories of battles won and lost, of politics, of art, and of life in Russia's vast courts. Even in the heart of winter, these moments of connection are what truly drive away the chill. You watch as Catherine engages with her guests, not from a distance, but as one among them. She listens intently to a young nobleman's tale, laughing gently at a joke, then turning to a group of older men to discuss matters of state. Her role as hostess goes beyond managing the food and drink. She is the glue that holds the evening together, ensuring that everyone feels welcome and appreciated. Her presence brings a sense of warmth that surpasses even the heat of the fire. Through her leadership, the feast becomes more than just a meal. It becomes a celebration of unity, of shared purpose, of the strength to endure, even in the face of the harshest winter. As the evening draws to a close, the guests linger, savoring the last few bites of dessert, reluctant to leave the warmth of the room and the comfort of each other's company. The fires burn low, but the spirits remain high. In this moment, the cold outside is a distant memory, a passing challenge that is dwarfed by the richness of the evening. Thanks to Catherine, the Empress who made it all possible, the winter's bite is forgotten, if only for a few precious hours. As the night wears on, the flickering flames in the hearth cast long dancing shadows across the walls, their glow softening the edges of the room. The laughter and conversation continue to fill the air, though the energy is slowing the festivities winding down. The food once abundant is now a comforting memory of indulgence, the last crumbs of pastries and sips of wine lingering on the tables. The guests, now more relaxed, lean back in their chairs, savoring the warmth of both the fire and the companionship they've shared. Catherine moves effortlessly among them, her presence still commanding, but more serene, now her eyes content as she observes her guests. She exchanges a few final words with the musicians, offering thanks for the melodies that have brightened the evening, and then turns to speak with a couple of old friends who have gathered around the table. Her laughter rings out once more, soft and genuine, as she listens to one last joke from a guest, the moment both lighthearted and intimate. In the quiet that settles, after the laughter dies down, you see Catherine take a moment to herself, standing by the window, looking out over the snow-covered landscape. The room behind her is still alive with conversation, but for a brief moment, she is alone with her thoughts, her gaze drifting over the white, frozen world that stretches beyond the palace walls. The winter outside is harsh and unyielding, but here in this moment, within the warmth of her home, she has created something much more enduring, a sanctuary of warmth, connection, and joy. The chill of the night, the biting wind howling beyond the palace gates, seems to retreat further and further as Catherine continues to move through the evening. The fires burn low, but the embers still crackle their warmth, lingering in the air. The guests, some reluctant to leave, exchange final words of gratitude and well wishes before they make their way to the doors, their heavy cloaks wrapped tightly around their shoulders to protect them from the cold once more. As they exit, you notice the lingering smiles on their faces, the warmth they take with them into the night, a reflection of the evening they've just shared. It's not just the heat from the fire or the lavish banquet that they'll remember. It's the sense of unity, the feeling of being welcomed, the knowledge that for just a few precious hours they were part of something greater than themselves. Thanks to Catherine, they leave the palace not only satisfied in their bodies, but uplifted in spirit, having shared in something much more enduring than a fleeting moment of warmth. As the last guests depart, Catherine stands by the hearth for a moment, her posture still regal, but her face soft content in the knowledge that despite the cold winter that surrounds her, she has created something that can withstand it, a night of connection, a gathering of strength, a reminder of the power of unity and warmth in the harshest of seasons. And so, as the final embers burn low and the last whispers of conversation fade away, Catherine remains at the heart of it all, her leadership enduring like the warmth that still lingers in the air, ensuring that despite the cold outside her court, will always find a place to gather, a place to be united. As you step deeper into the heart of Catherine's court, you begin to sense that winter isn't just a physical challenge, it's a mirror for the political turmoil that brews within the walls of the palace. The cold, which so harshly grips the land outside, seems to creep into the very fabric of the empire itself, seeping through the cracks of the palace's grandeur. Winter, in all its brutality, reflects the tensions that Catherine faces every day as a ruler. The peace and luxury of her palace can never fully shield her from the struggles of governing such a vast and diverse empire. You feel the weight of it in the air, an undercurrent of unease among the courtiers. Even as Catherine maintains her composure, her eyes sharp, her posture poised, you can see that there are whispers behind closed doors. Rebellions and conspiracies are never far from the surface, their presence palpable even in the warmth of the palace. The cold winter winds outside may howl relentlessly, but it is the storm of political unrest within the court that truly tests her. The tensions that simmer beneath the surface threaten to break free at any moment, challenging Catherine's ability to lead effectively during these perilous months. As you walk through the corridors, you sense the unease that permeates the palace. Despite the grand surroundings, the golden trim, the marble floors, and the delicate tapestries that hang from the walls, there is an undeniable tension in the air. Courtiers exchange nervous glances, their conversations guarded as though every word spoken might be overheard by those with ulterior motives. The fire crackles in the hearths, providing some warmth, but it cannot dispel the frostiness that has settled in the hearts of those within the court. Even Catherine the Empress herself feels the weight of these silent battles. Her steady gaze betrays no hint of weakness yet. In the quiet moments, you can almost see the strain in her eyes. The chill that lingers in the air is not just physical. It is the chill of mistrust and uncertainty, the coldness of political maneuvering, and the threat of betrayal. Catherine's role as the ruler of such a vast empire, with its many factions and ambitions, makes her a constant target for those seeking to undermine her power. And in this winter of discontent, every decision, every interaction carries the potential for rebellion, for whispers of conspiracy to turn into actions that could shake the very foundations of her reign. As you observe Catherine, you notice how her every move is deliberate, every gesture carefully measured. The poise she exudes is more than just a reflection of her royal status. It is a shield against the political fires that threaten to consume her. The icy winds outside may be a tangible threat, but inside the walls of the palace, the winds of dissent blow just as fiercely. Catherine, though seemingly unshaken, is always aware of this delicate balance between maintaining control, keeping her enemies at bay, and ensuring that her empire remains stable despite the unrest that brews beneath the surface. The courtiers, once full of laughter and idle chatter, now speak in hushed tones. Some of them, you notice, seem to move with greater caution, as if they fear the walls themselves have ears. The political climate is as cold and unpredictable as the winter weather outside, and Catherine's leadership is constantly under threat. Even the warmth of the banquet halls cannot shield her from the knowledge that her position is fragile. The same courtiers who share meals with her and bow before her in the great halls may be the very ones plotting against her in the shadows. Yet, despite the political strife and the cold that invades every corner of the empire, Catherine remains a steady force. You watch as she handles the whispers with the grace of a woman who has faced far greater challenges in her life. Her composure is her weapon, her ability to maintain control and make decisions with clarity, even in the midst of such turbulence, is what sets her apart. As rumors swirl and conspiracies rise, Catherine does not falter. She moves with the assurance of someone who has weathered many storms and knows that in times like these, she must be both a queen and a strategist. She addresses her counsel with the same confidence she brings to any challenge, her words measured and precise, each decision made with careful thought. Catherine's rule is not just one of luxury and grandeur, it is one of survival. And like the winter winds that relentlessly batter her palace, the political unrest she faces is a constant reminder that no matter how powerful she may seem, she must always be on guard. The cold may freeze the earth outside, but within the walls of her court, the battles for power and control rage just as fiercely. And Catherine, with her steady leadership, continues to face them head on. As the season wears on and the political storms within her court intensify, you realize that Catherine's ability to maintain control is what will define her reign. The cold winter may bring suffering, but it also brings clarity, a reminder that only the strong can endure. And in the face of rebellion, conspiracy, and intrigue, Catherine remains resolute. The cold outside may be merciless, but it is nothing compared to the icy challenges she faces in her pursuit to rule an empire that stretches across continents. As the winter deepens, you watch as Catherine navigates the growing unrest among the nobility and her own advisors. With the biting cold outside, there is a certain chill within the walls of her court where trust is tested and loyalties are fractured. Whispers of rebellion. As winter's grip tightens, so too does the pressure on Catherine. The conspiracies and uprisings test her ability to rule not just as a monarch, but as a woman in a world dominated by men. Every decision she makes carries weight, and you can see the toll it takes on her. The cold has a way of making everything feel heavier, and you begin to notice the subtle signs of fatigue in Catherine. The sharpness in her gaze never dulls, but there are moments when the strain of maintaining control over a vast and divided empire becomes too much to ignore. Despite the challenges she faces, Catherine does not back down. She faces the political struggles with the same quiet resolve that she faces the cold winters. In her private chambers, you can see her hunched over letters, reading through reports, of rebellion, deciphering messages from her spies. The fire in the hearth crackles beside her, but it cannot chase away the weight of the decisions she must make. Catherine is always on alert, always calculating her next move in the game of politics, always aware of the delicate balance she must maintain to keep her empire intact. You realize that Catherine's true strength lies not only in her ability to command armies or manage her court, but in her resilience during these difficult times. The winter may be harsh, the rebellion's unyielding, but Catherine remains steadfast. Her resolve is tested daily, and yet she continues to lead with unwavering strength, determined to secure the future of her empire, no matter the cost. Echo through the hallways as nobles and military leaders alike vie for power, each one trying to assert their influence over Catherine's reign. She is constantly surrounded by potential threats, each one as dangerous as the winter winds that seem to never cease. Catherine, however, is no stranger to such struggles. She has faced revolts before, and she knows how to handle them. With a steady hand, she calls her advisors together, listening carefully to the reports of unrest from across the empire. Her resolve never wavers as she listens to the details of the conspiracies that threaten her rule. She has learned through years of experience to trust her instincts to sift through the lies and deceit to find the truth. In the dead of winter, when the cold seems to freeze everything around her, Catherine takes decisive action. She orders swift measures to quash uprisings to silence the rebels who threaten to tear her empire apart. Her decisions are calculated, and though they may be harsh, they are necessary. You watch as she stands firm, giving orders with calm authority, her eyes burning with the determination that has made her one of Russia's greatest leaders. The cold outside may be unforgiving, but Catherine's grip on her empire is even more so. As the winter deepens, you begin to understand just how much Catherine's leadership is shaped by the challenges she faces during these cold months. The cold is more than just a physical presence. It is a reminder of the trials that await her every day. The rebellion, the political maneuvering, the constant questioning of her authority. These are the true challenges she must face. The fire in her hearths is a temporary comfort, but the real warmth she brings to her empire is through her leadership, her ability to hold her ground when everything else seems to be falling apart. In this dark, cold season, Catherine's true nature shines through. She is not just an empress by title. She is an empress by action, by determination, by the strength to face the cold of winter and the political struggles that threaten to unravel her reign. The winter outside may never fully leave, but neither will her leadership, for Catherine the Great is a force that no storm, no rebellion, no cold can ever diminish. As the days grow shorter and the winter nights colder, you observe Catherine with a deepening sense of admiration. She does not retreat from the challenges of the season, nor does she allow the political storms brewing in her court to shake her resolve. Instead, She faces them head on with a calm strength that inspires both respect and fear. The winter, with its biting cold and relentless winds, may attempt to invade the palace, but it cannot touch the fire of determination within Catherine. Her leadership burns brighter, with each passing day, a guiding light for her empire, even in the darkest hours. The palace, still grand and opulent, is now filled with the quieter moments of leadership, those unspoken decisions that are made in the silence of Catherine's study in the late hours of the night when the cold is at its fiercest. You can almost see her sitting at her desk, her sharp eyes scanning over reports of unrest, of whispers, of rebellion from within her ranks, and yet there is no sign of fear. Instead, Catherine's face remains focused, her mind working through strategies and solutions always several steps ahead of those who would seek to undermine her power. The weight of ruling an empire does not break her. It sharpens her like the cold steel of a blade forged in fire. The courtiers, too, begin to feel the effects of Catherine's steady hand. As the rebellion's murmurs grow louder, they are reminded that Catherine will not be easily swayed, not even by those closest to her. Her ability to read the room, to sense the currents of dissent before they become storms, is unmatched. She has learned that in times like these, she must be both a ruler and a protector, not just of her throne, but of the stability of her empire. The cold winds of political betrayal, like the winter gales, may howl, but they will not shake her foundation. Even in the midst of political maneuvering, Catherine is ever the diplomat, moving with calculated grace among her advisors and courtiers. She listens, she observes, and she weighs every word spoken. There is a strength in her silence in the way she commands attention without needing to raise her voice. She knows when to speak and when to wait, when to act, and when to allow her enemies to reveal themselves. Her leadership is not built on fear alone, but on a deep understanding of the human condition, how to manipulate power, how to inspire loyalty, and most importantly, how to weather the storm that often accompanies the pursuit of the crown. You begin to realize that Catherine's true power is not just in the battles she wins or the treaties she signs, but in her ability to stay grounded in the face of adversity. The rebellion, the political intrigue, and the cold winter all serve as tests not of her ability to rule, but of her ability to persevere. And she does so with unwavering resolve. While the seasons may change, while the rebellion may rise and fall, Catherine's leadership remains constant, like the hearth that continues to burn long after the firewood has turned to ash. It is this quiet, unrelenting strength that has earned her the title of great. As the winter months stretch on, you can sense the respect she commands growing ever deeper, not just from her court, but from the very people she rules. The cold winds may howl outside the palace, but within these walls, Catherine's leadership is a shield that protects her empire. And in this cold, harsh season, you see her shine brighter than ever, a beacon of resilience, power, and unwavering determination. No storm, no rebellion, no icy cold can ever dim the fire of Catherine the Great. Through every trial, through every political struggle, her leadership burns brighter, shaping the future of Russia in a way that will be felt for generations to come. The cold may come and go, but Catherine's legacy, forged in the harshness of winter, and the strength of her spirit will endure long after the frost has melted away. As you step into the heart of Catherine's palace, you quickly realize that it is more than just a symbol of wealth and power. It is also a refuge, a sanctuary from the brutal forces of nature that rage outside. The thick stone walls, towering and majestic, offer some protection against the freezing winds that howl across the Russian landscape. Yet despite the grandiosity of the palace, the cold is never truly kept at bay. You can feel it in the air, in the way the temperature shifts from room to room. How the chill seems to creep into every corner, no matter how carefully the fires are stoked. Inside the palace is designed to impress, but survival during the winter months requires more than just opulence. The stone may keep out some of the wind, but it also traps the cold in a way that even the most ornate furnishings cannot overcome. The high ceilings, the grand windows, all of it allows for an unmatched view of the Russian winter outside, but it also lets in the frost. You can imagine Catherine standing in her chambers, gazing out at the snow-covered landscape, her gaze as cold and sharp as the wind she faces. She is surrounded by luxury, yet even she cannot escape the raw power of nature. The real challenge, you realize, is adaptation. The warmth of the hearths and the thick tapestries may provide some comfort, but Catherine and her court must learn to live in harmony with the winter. Every step taken within the palace is a reminder that while wealth and status may shield you from some things, they cannot protect you from everything. The elements will always find a way in, and to survive, one must adapt both mentally and physically. As you walk deeper into the palace, you begin to notice the ways in which the courtiers and staff adapt to the cold. The marble floors, which would be warm in any other season, feel icy underfoot. You see the servants moving quickly across the rooms, their steps brisk to keep warm, their breath visible in the air as they go about their duties. The nobility, despite their elaborate garments and intricate adornments, wear layers beneath their silks, fur-lined cloaks, thick woolen stockings and gloves, everything designed to help them endure the winter's bite. Even Catherine herself, though always poised and dignified, has adapted her own behavior. You watch as she adjusts the velvet and fur of her gown, pulling it a little tighter as she steps into her chambers. The warmth from the fire in her room is a welcome relief, but even she knows it is fleeting. The warmth of the hearth can never truly conquer the cold that lingers in the corners of her palace. yet she doesn't show any discomfort outwardly. She remains the empress, carrying herself with grace and authority. But you can see in her eyes there's an understanding of the challenge she faces, not just from the cold, but from everything it represents. The cold that creeps into the palace is more than a mere inconvenience. It symbolizes the harsh realities of the empire she rules. The political struggles, the constant need to maintain control, the rebellion and unrest that lurk just beneath the surface. These are the things that Catherine must face every day, just as she must face the cold of winter. She cannot escape them much as she cannot escape the chill of the palace. Both the natural elements and the political storms are constant forces that she must adapt to, learning to endure them, not just as a woman, but as the ruler of Russia. In Catherine's private moments, when the court disperses and she is alone in her chambers, you see her gaze shift to the window where the winter landscape stretches out before her, vast and unyielding. The snow-covered trees, the frozen river, the distant mountains, they all remind her of the challenges she faces both inside and outside the palace walls. The winter is relentless, but so is Catherine's resolve. She stands against it just as she stands against the political forces that would seek to destabilize her rule. The cold, in all its power, cannot break her spirit. Instead, it fuels her determination to remain strong, to adapt, and to lead her people through the most difficult seasons, both literal and metaphorical. You realize that for Catherine, the palace is not just a place of refuge from the cold, it is a battleground. The fires in the hearths may provide temporary comfort, but the real warmth comes from her leadership, her strength to persevere, and her ability to adapt to the challenges she faces. The cold outside the frost, creeping through the cracks of her palace, is just another test, another obstacle to overcome. And in this, Catherine finds her true strength, her ability to adapt to survive, and to lead her empire through the harshest of winters. Inside the walls of Catherine's palace, life continues with a delicate balance of struggle and indulgence. You can see the courtiers and nobles gathered in the grand dining halls, dressed in layers of clothing to stave off the persistent cold. The luxurious silk gowns of the noble women are hidden beneath furs, their delicate hands wrapped in gloves to protect them from the chill that cuts through even the thickest of fabrics. The men, too, wear thick woolen coats sometimes, with fur-lined collars, adding an extra layer of protection from the drafty halls. Yet despite the cold, there's an undeniable air of indulgence. The tables are piled high with delicacies, the finest wines from across Europe, and the richest foods of the empire. Catherine's court is a place of opulence where indulgence seems limitless. But beneath the grandeur, you feel the underlying tension between comfort and survival. The constant struggle against the cold, the need to stay warm becomes a part of daily life, woven into the fabric of the palace's routines. The grand feasts, the laughter, the music, everything that seems like an escape from the harsh world outside is tinged with the knowledge that even here in the heart of Catherine's empire, survival depends on constant adaptation. You watch Catherine as she moves through the palace, her attire as lavish as ever, rich velvet gowns and sparkling jewels that catch the light of the flickering candles. Yet as she moves between her court and her advisors, you notice the slight adjustments she makes to stay warm. Her cloak, lined with fur, is pulled tighter around her shoulders, and when she pauses for a moment, you can see her exhale a visible breath, the cold creeping into her royal chambers despite the blazing fire. Catherine, despite her powerful position, is not exempt from the harshness of the season. She must adapt to the frigid temperatures just as her courtiers do. Yet even in the face of this, there is no sign of weakness in her. Her movements remain composed and regal, her words deliberate and thoughtful. She is a monarch after all, and the cold may rattle the bones of the men and women around her, but it will not touch her resolve. She walks through the palace unfazed, her mind focused on matters of state, and even as she feels the winter's bite, she does so with the strength and resilience of a true leader. Every day, Catherine is reminded of the difficulty of ruling in the winter months. Her advisors, her ministers, and even her closest allies are affected by the cold, and she, as their leader, must ensure that they stay motivated, focused, and unwavering in the face of such challenges. Her ability to endure the cold while managing the empire's affairs is a testament to her strength. She never lets the discomfort of the season show, but you know that beneath the calm exterior, she faces the same struggles as those she leads. As the evening draws to a close, you sense how Catherine's palace becomes more than just a place of luxury. It is a fortress not only from the cold, but from the political storms that brew outside. The stone walls, despite their chill, provide protection for Catherine's empire, offering her a place from which to govern and a shelter for her people. The palace may not be immune to the cold, but it is the heart of Russia, its foundation, its strength. Inside these walls, the empire's future is shaped. The fires burn brightly in the hearths. The tapestries hang proudly on the walls, and the courtiers gather to discuss matters of state. But beneath all of this, there is a deeper understanding. The palace itself is a fortress, both in a physical sense and in the way it protects the heart of the empire. The palace shields Catherine from the cold of winter, from rebellion, and from the pressures of ruling such a vast and volatile empire. And yet, despite its grandeur, you understand that the true fortress lies not in the palace's walls, but in Catherine herself. It is her leadership, her ability to adapt, to persevere through the cold and the political challenges that makes this place truly strong. The palace may protect her body from the elements, but it is her will, her resolve that shields the empire from the storms that threaten it. In this fortress, Catherine remains a symbol of endurance, an unwavering force that no winter, no rebellion, no political struggle can break. As the last flickers of daylight fade, the soft glow of the hearths grows stronger, casting a warm golden light across the grand rooms. The palace now, a sanctuary from the winter's grip, hums with a quiet energy, as if every brick and stone knows the weight of the empire it protects. The courtiers, once full of conversation and festivity, now gather in smaller circles, their voices low as they discuss matters of state. You watch Catherine move through the room, her eyes scanning the faces of those around her, ever watchful, ever alert to the undercurrents of intrigue that may be swirling just beneath the surface. The palace is no longer just a place for feasts and opulence. It has become a crucible where the fate of Russia itself is determined. The cold may linger outside, but within these walls, Catherine's leadership is the fire that keeps the empire burning bright. She is more than just a ruler within these stone walls. She is the pulse, the beating heart of the nation. It is her strength, her resilience that fortifies the empire, making it unyielding in the face of external pressures and internal conspiracies. You sense that for Catherine, the palace is not just a shelter from the storm. It is the arena where she faces her greatest battles. Every decision she makes, every action she takes reverberates through these grand halls, shaping the future of an empire. Her mind works constantly calculating, analyzing, weighing the consequences of each move. The grandeur of the palace may surround her, but it is her inner strength, her unshakable will, that ensures its survival. In a world where winter and rebellion are always threatening, Catherine has learned that it is not the cold stone walls that define the empire, but the will of its ruler to endure, to lead, and to overcome. As you observe her, you realize that Catherine's strength is not just in her ability to govern, but in her ability to face the most difficult challenges with grace and poise. The palace may shield her from the elements, but it is her fortitude that shields Russia from the storms of war, rebellion, and uncertainty. She stands resolute, her gaze unwavering, a leader unbowed by the weight of her responsibilities. It is this more than any physical fortress that has made her one of the most formidable rulers in history. The empire may be vast, its borders stretching across continents, but within the walls of this palace, Catherine remains the center, the axis on which the entire empire turns. The cold of winter may be an ever-present threat, but it is no match for the warmth she brings to her people, both through her leadership and her unwavering commitment to her role. No rebellion, no political struggle, no harsh winter can break the spirit of Catherine the Great, for she is the fortress that keeps Russia standing tall. As the final embers of the fire glow faintly in the hearth, Catherine stands by the window, gazing out over the snow-covered landscape. The winds howl, the snow falls, but she remains unmoved, a figure of strength and endurance. The palace may be her shelter, but it is her will that makes Russia unbreakable. And as the night deepens, you know that Catherine, as both ruler and protector, will continue to stand firm guarding the heart of her empire, no matter what storms may come. As you step into the thick of winter in Catherine's court, you begin to see the season as something more than just a harsh climate. It becomes a mirror of her rule. The brutal Russian winter, with its relentless cold and unyielding winds, mirrors the challenges Catherine faces every day as a ruler. The storm outside the biting cold that seeps into every crevice serves as a constant reminder of the battles she must fight not just against nature, but against the forces that seek to destabilize her empire. Catherine's resilience is not just seen in her ability to endure the physical cold, but in her unshakable resolve to keep her empire intact. The freezing temperatures may bite at her skin, and the political storms within her court may threaten her rule, but like the winter, Catherine does not yield. Instead, she stands firm, pushing forward with strength and determination. Her ability to navigate through these harsh conditions, whether literal or metaphorical, is what defines her as a leader. In this cold, you see her true strength, not in the warmth of her palace, but in the fire of her resolve. The cold of winter may be an ever-present force, but Catherine's leadership rises above it. She governs with the same steadfastness that she faces the bitter winds of Russia, showing that even when the cold is relentless, one can find the strength to push through. Her leadership, like the Russian winter, is unyielding, a constant force that shapes the destiny of the empire, no matter the obstacles she faces. As the harsh winds of winter continue to howl outside, Catherine remains steadfast in her commitment to her empire. You watch her moving through the palace halls with a quiet grace, her every action purposeful, her mind focused on the task at hand. Her gaze is unwavering, her expression resolute, and despite the tensions that ripple through her court, Catherine does not flinch. She is the embodiment of endurance, not just surviving the storm, but actively shaping her empire in its midst. You realize that Catherine's ability to govern through the cold months, both literal and political, reveals the true nature of her leadership. While others might be content to seek shelter from the elements, Catherine has never been one to shy away from the challenges that come with power. Instead of avoiding the struggles, she faces them head-on, tackling each challenge with a combination of wisdom, strength, and unrelenting perseverance. It is this resilience that has earned her the title of the Great. Inside the palace, the firelight flickers and dances, offering brief warmth and comfort, but the cold never truly disappears. The court, despite its lavishness, can never escape the seasonal grip of winter. Yet, like the fire in the hearth, Catherine's leadership brings warmth and direction to those around her. She inspires loyalty in her advisors, courage in her military leaders, and admiration from her people. Just as the fire persists in burning through the long winter nights, Catherine's power and authority burn brightly, driving her empire forward, even when the elements seem to conspire against her. As you observe her, it becomes clear that Catherine's rule is much like the Russian winter. It is fierce, unyielding, and shaped by the forces of nature, both political and physical. The cold cannot break her, nor can the challenges of her reign. Each obstacle she faces, whether from within her court or beyond her borders, only serves to reinforce her resolve. Just as the harsh winter shapes the land, making it stronger and more resilient, Catherine's leadership has shaped Russia into an empire that can withstand the most difficult of circumstances. And yet, there is a certain quiet strength in Catherine's leadership. While the storm of winter rages outside within the palace, there is an air of calm determination. You sense that despite the turbulence of the season, Catherine has found a way to harness the power of the winter to channel it into something greater. Her leadership is not merely about survival, it is about transformation. She has taken the cold, the political strife, and the challenges of ruling a vast empire and molded them into the foundation upon which Russia stands today. In the face of adversity, Catherine does not yield. Her resolve, like the winter winds, is constant and unbending. The cold may persist, the storms may come, but Catherine's leadership remains the anchor that holds her empire steady. Through every trial she rises, proving that like the unrelenting Russian winter, her reign is a force that cannot be broken. The empire may change with the seasons, but Catherine's strength endures, unwavering and resolute in the face of whatever comes. As you observe Catherine's rule, you realize that the cold has a lesson to impart both to her and to the people she leads. The Russian winter is harsh, unforgiving, and constant. It teaches the people of Russia something vital: the ability to endure, to survive, and to adapt. Just as the people must learn to live with the cold, so too must Catherine learn to navigate the challenges of her reign. In both cases, survival requires resilience, and Catherine, in her ability to adapt to the harshest circumstances, becomes a symbol of this very resilience. You feel the weight of this lesson in the way Catherine governs. The empire, much like the winter, demands endurance. It demands that one not only survive, but thrive in the face of adversity. The lessons of the cold teach the people to make the most of what they have, just as Catherine, in her rule, learns to make the most of her resources, her alliances, and her own strength. The winter becomes a silent teacher, shaping the people, strengthening their resolve, and reminding them that to live in Russia is to endure. As you reflect on the lessons the cold teaches you, begin to see how deeply they influence Catherine's reign. The Russian winter, in all its harshness, becomes a silent guide, shaping not only the people's resilience, but also the way Catherine governs. The empire she rules is vast, like the endless, snow-covered landscapes stretching beyond the palace walls, and just as the people must endure the bitter chill to survive, Catherine must navigate the political cold, the conspiracies, and the challenges of leadership with the same fortitude. Her ability to withstand these trials, to rise above the obstacles and adapt, is what sets her apart as a ruler. Catherine's decisions, much like her approach to winter, are rooted in practicality and long-term thinking. She understands that survival requires more than just the strength to endure. It requires the ability to adapt and make the best use of what is available. The cold, for all its ruthlessness, teaches the people to use what they have to their advantage, whether it's clothing to protect against the elements, firewood to keep warm, or community to share resources. Similarly, Catherine learns to wield her power with wisdom, making strategic alliances and carefully considering each move. The resources she has, her court, her army, her political connections, are not taken for granted. Just as the people of Russia learned to make the most of a harsh winter, Catherine learns to make the most of every tool at her disposal to strengthen her empire. You begin to realize that Catherine's strength is not just in her ability to survive the winter, but in how she transforms the challenges she faces into opportunities for growth. The cold may teach resilience, but it also teaches ingenuity. Those who endure the Russian winter do so not only through sheer will, but through cleverness, resourcefulness, and unity. Catherine's leadership is marked by these same qualities. She faces her challenges not with blind strength, but with a sharp mind, a strategic vision, and the ability to inspire others to follow her example. The winter, in its relentless presence, shapes not only Catherine, but the very essence of Russia. The people learn to live with the cold, to find comfort and strength in unity and resourcefulness. They build their lives around the harsh seasons, adapting their routines, their farming techniques, their methods of survival. Similarly, Catherine shapes her rule to fit the challenges of the empire, recognizing that strength lies not in avoiding adversity, but in facing it head on and transforming it into something that will benefit her people, just as the bitter cold can be endured by those who learn its ways, so too can the challenges of ruling an empire be overcome by a leader who learns to adapt, to endure, and to make the most of what is available. You understand then that Catherine's reign is a direct reflection of the lessons taught by the Russian winter. It is a reign marked by resilience, by the constant need to adapt, and by the determination to not just survive, but to thrive despite the adversities. The cold may be harsh and unyielding, but it is also a force that shapes the empire, forges the character of its people, and tests the strength of its ruler. And like the winter, Catherine's leadership, though challenging, is what will ultimately ensure the survival and strength of Russia for generations to come. As the winter winds howl outside the palace, you begin to understand the true nature of the cold. It is a teacher, harsh and unforgiving, but one that forges strength in those who survive it. The people of Russia, like Catherine, learn early that the cold is a force to be reckoned with. It is something that must be respected, but it is also something that can be overcome. Through Catherine's example, the people are shown how to endure hardships, how to face the cold of winter with strength and resilience, knowing that the warmth of spring is never far behind. Catherine's leadership, too, is shaped by the lessons of the cold. She knows that true power is not just about commanding armies or imposing laws. It is about the ability to withstand the trials that come to endure when the world seems harsh and unyielding. Her reign, like the winter, teaches the importance of persistence, of finding ways to adapt, and of not letting the difficulties of the moment break you. The cold may be fierce, but it is the fire within that keeps you going. And Catherine has learned to keep that fire burning brightly, no matter the external forces at play. You realize that in many ways, the winter is not just a challenge for Catherine, it is a challenge for all of Russia. But just as the cold teaches resilience, it also teaches unity. In the face of such harsh conditions, the people come together, finding strength in each other. The cold forces them to rely on one another, to share resources, to support one another through the hardest months. This sense of unity is what allows them to survive, and it is a lesson Catherine carries with her as she governs. Her reign, like the cold winter, becomes a test of endurance, not just for herself, but for her people. In her leadership, she emphasizes the importance of solidarity, of standing together in the face of adversity. She shows them through her actions and decisions that despite the cold and the hardships, the strength of the empire lies in its unity. The winter, though harsh, becomes a unifying force, forging a sense of common purpose among Catherine's people. They endure together, just as Catherine does, and it is this shared resilience that keeps Russia strong. As you reflect on Catherine, the Great's reign, you realize that the cold, both outside her palace and within her court, became more than just a challenge. It was a crucible that forged her strength as a ruler. The harsh Russian winter, in its relentless fury, was never far from her thoughts, but it never broke her. It became, in many ways, a reflection of the trials she faced as empress, constant struggles to hold on to power, to navigate rebellion and conspiracy, to adapt to the ever-changing dynamics of her court and her empire. Yet, like the unyielding cold of the Russian winter, Catherine persisted her resolve, growing only stronger in the face of adversity. Catherine's strength was not just in her ability to endure the physical cold, but in her capacity to face the political storms that threatened her rule. While many sought shelter from the biting winds and freezing temperatures, Catherine found ways to embrace the winter's challenges, using them to sharpen her leadership and fortify her empire. Her ability to adapt to the harsh realities around her, whether it was the treacherous nature of court politics or the unforgiving climate outside, became a hallmark of her reign. In this brutal winter, Catherine proved that true leadership is not about avoiding hardship, but about facing it head on, using every tool at her disposal to weather the storm. Her palace, though grand and majestic, could not shield her from the political intrigue and rebellion that simmered just beneath the surface. But Catherine's leadership was a fortress in itself. Her steady resolve, her capacity for hard decisions, and her ability to unite people under her rule transformed her from a mere monarch into one of history's greatest leaders. Her reign was a series of winters, both literal and metaphorical. Every challenge she faced, from internal rebellion to the pressures of managing an empire spanning continents, required the same endurance and resilience that the people of Russia needed to survive the harshest seasons. Catherine, much like the people she ruled, learned to not only survive, but to thrive despite the difficulties. And in doing so, she left a legacy that continues to shape Russia to this day. Her strength, endurance, and commitment to her people were reflected in every aspect of her rule, making her an iconic figure of resilience. But Catherine's story does not end with her weathering the cold winter. In fact, the storm of political struggle that shaped her reign was just beginning to take its true form. What happened behind the cold walls of her palace within the grand halls and chambers of power was just as unforgiving as the winter itself. In the next chapter of her life, we will explore how Catherine faced the political battles that tested not just her strength, but the future of her empire. Catherine's court was a place of constant intrigue where whispers of conspiracy echoed through the halls and political alliances were as fragile as the ice covering Russia's rivers. She was not only contending with the natural forces of winter, but with the human forces determined to unseat her. The rebellion, the manipulation, the shifting loyalties. These were the real battles Catherine had to fight, and she did so with the same resilience that carried her through the long winters. In part 2, we will delve into the political intrigues of Catherine's court, her cunning maneuvers, her ability to outsmart her enemies, and the way she shaped the future of Russia despite constant threats to her power. The political cold was just as harsh as the natural winter, and Catherine's ability to navigate these frozen waters would define her legacy. Stay tuned to discover the intricate web of politics, loyalty, and betrayal that Catherine faced, and how she emerged from it all as one of the most powerful monarchs in history. As we leave Catherine in the heart of her empire, standing firm against the cold winds of both nature and politics, I invite you to take a moment to reflect on her strength and resilience. Like the people of Russia enduring the harshest winters, Catherine too endured, and in her perseverance she demonstrated the true meaning of leadership. May we too draw inspiration from her example of unyielding resolve in the face of adversity. Now, as the evening winds down and the fire burns low, I wish you a peaceful night. May your dreams be filled with the warmth of resilience and the strength to face whatever challenges lie ahead, just as Catherine the Great faced her trials with unwavering courage. Sleep well, knowing that strength like winter can be endured, and from it, greatness is born. Good night.